So a lot of organizations out there talk a big game about their commitment to reconciliation. But what's the real difference between just making a statement and having an actual strategy? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. We are diving into the playbook for creating something called a Reconciliation Action Plan, or a RAP, and we're going to see how you can turn those good intentions into real, measurable impact. Here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about why a formal plan is so darn critical in the first place. Then, we'll unpack the 4 big pillars that make up its backbone. From there, we'll get into the real nitty-gritty, getting your organization ready, setting goals that actually, mean something, and then we'll hit the most important piece of all, building a system for accountability that proves this isn't just for show. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. Why even bother with a formal plan? Why isn't a simple public statement of commitment enough? And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? Can a simple commitment to reconciliation actually move the needle? Well, all the evidence points to a pretty clear answer: nope, not on its own. So let's dig into why that is. This right here, this image, it just captures the whole challenge perfectly. On the left, you've got this vague sentiment: we support reconciliation. It sounds nice, it feels good, but at the end of the day, it's just a cloud of good intentions. But on the right, that's where a RAP lives. It takes that abstract idea and forges it into a concrete project, with actual budgets, with people who own it, with metrics, and with a clear way to see if you're making any progress. One is a hope, the other is a plan. So let's get our terms straight. A Reconciliation Action Plan, or RAP, it's way more than just a document. It's the bridge. It's what connects the huge essential principles, like the TRC's calls to action, with the specific, time-bound commitments that your organization is actually going to be held accountable for. You can think of these as the 4 big selling points for a RAP. Internally, it creates clarity and real accountability, so everybody knows what the goal is. And then externally, it helps manage massive legal and reputational risks while also building the trust that is absolutely essential for any kind of meaningful partnership with Indigenous communities. It's both a shield and a bridge. Okay, so if that's the why, now we need to talk about the what. What does a strong RAP actually look like? Well, it's built on 4 foundational pillars. Think of them as the architectural blueprint for the whole thing. These 4 pillars, they all work together to create this complete, holistic framework. It all starts with relationships, building actual trust. And that trust, it's nurtured through respect, which means creating a workplace that's culturally safe and educated. From that foundation, you can then create real, genuine opportunities for economic inclusion. And the thing holding it all together? That's governance, the solid commitment from the very top leadership to see it all through. And notice this. See how each of these pillars maps directly to the TRC's Call to Action 92? That grounds the entire process in that absolutely critical work. All right, let's shift gears from the theory to the practice. This is where the real work kicks in, building that internal readiness. Because before you can go out and build bridges with anyone else, you've got to make sure your own foundation is solid. And listen, there are 3 absolutely non-negotiable first steps here. First, it has to come from the top. CEO and board sponsorship is essential. This is where so many of these initiatives fail. Without that authority, a RAP just has no teeth. Second, it needs a real budget. This can't be some side-of-the-desk project or a volunteer thing. It needs real resources to succeed. And third, you have to break down those internal silos. Form a working group with leaders from all across the business, HR, operations, you name it, to make sure this plan is truly integrated into everything. So with that team and that budget in place, your very first job is to take a really hard look in the mirror. You need a baseline. Where are we actually starting from? That means digging into your policies to find any hidden barriers, figuring out your team's current level of cultural competency, and so crucially, getting the real hard data on your Indigenous hiring and procurement spending. And that baseline data, that becomes the launchpad for our next stage, designing goals you can actually act on. This is where the strategy gets very real, turning those big ideas into specific, measurable targets. Yeah, the best tool for this is the classic SMART goals framework. You've probably heard of it. It is the perfect antidote to vague, wishy-washy objectives. It forces you to get concrete. What exactly are we going to do? How are we going to measure it? And by when is it going to be done? It's all about moving from we should to we will. So let's look at some real, tangible examples. Under the respect pillar, a SMART goal isn't just do some training. No, it's 100% completion of cultural humility training for all senior management, with the VP of HR as the owner and a hard deadline of Q2 2026. For opportunities, it's increasing Indigenous procurement spend to a very specific target, 5% by year 3. And for governance, it's linking a portion of executive bonuses directly to these metrics. See? This is what real commitment looks like on paper. Let's just pause on this one number for a second, 5%. A target like this is incredibly powerful. Why? Because it completely changes the conversation inside a company. It gives the procurement team a clear, quantifiable goal to work towards and to measure themselves against. It moves the entire effort from, yeah, we should try to do more, to this is our target, how are we going to hit it? But, and this is a critical warning, these goals absolutely cannot be created in a corporate vacuum. A RAP that's developed without deep, respectful engagement with local Indigenous communities is, frankly, doomed to fail. It has to reflect their priorities. This has to be a true partnership, not just a corporate checklist. Which brings us to our final, and you could argue, the most important piece of this entire puzzle: accountability. How do you make sure this plan actually becomes a living, breathing part of the organization and not just another report that sits on a shelf gathering dust? Well, the only way to make it real is to embed it into the very machinery of your business. That means procurement targets get hardwired right into the budgeting process. Indigenous hiring goals become a standard part of your regular HR reporting. New projects don't even get approved without a RAP check. It has to become part of the company's DNA. It's just how you operate now. And finally, you have to measure what matters. That means tracking outcomes, like are Indigenous employees staying and getting promoted? Not just activities, like how many people went to a workshop. It means being transparent, publishing your progress every year, the wins and the losses, and it means creating a formal way for your Indigenous partners to give you feedback so the plan can constantly evolve and get better. And this quote, it really just says it all. At the end of the day, success comes down to one thing: the courage of your leadership. The courage to tie real organizational accountability, things like executive bonuses, to actually hitting the targets you set in your reconciliation action plan. That right there is what separates a real commitment from an empty promise. So this playbook, it lays out the path from promise to actual progress. It shows how to build a plan that's structured, that's accountable, and that's truly impactful. The only question left is the one you see on the screen right now. A question for you and for your organization. Are you ready to lead?